Welcome to Kamiti Hebrew Ethics, Marifado. Taiwan is an island formerly known by the term Formosa, a Portuguese word. It is an island in the Western Pacific Ocean that lies roughly 160 kilometers off the coast of southeastern China. It is approximately 395 kilometers long, north-south, and 145 kilometers across at its widest point. It's a very tiny, but for Bantus and for all melanin-dominant people, it is one of the most important places on the earth. Recently, the Taiwanese president said she was sorry on behalf of what the government had done. Why did she say that? Who did they wrong? Are the descendants of these people that they wronged still around? As we search to rediscover the native indigenous Taiwanese, let us check and discover who she addressed her apology to. These aboriginals in Taiwan, are they the real indigenous natives or they are Chinese? You look at them here, they are called indigenous Taiwanese, but they look all Chinese. So was she apologizing to her Chinese citizens, or there is something more? The answer to these questions are a shocker. The title of our discussion is Who Lived in Taiwan Before the Chinese? Taiwan is a small island, but it is a very fascinating past that is totally ignored today. Speaking on behalf of the Aboriginal groups, 80-year-old Kapen Nganen, a Chinese mulatto, not a real indigenous native of Taiwan, accepted the apology that the president offered. These folks shamelessly will take your culture, rebrand it as theirs, and wait very soon, as we are allowing them to come into Africa, very shortly, they will start to claim that they built the pyramids, they built Great Zimbabwe, they built Songhai. They will also start to claim that they invented the kente cloth. And as he said that he was grateful for Mr. Tsai's gesture, he hoped that the government would honor the promises she made. Chinese facts, stealing indigenous Taiwanese history. There are no two ways about the facts that we are going to lay here. There is evidence of human settlement in Taiwan dating back as far as 30 to 40,000 years ago. You can see where these people are likely to have come from into Taiwan. Who are these people? What was or is their race today? Have you seen their images, or have we been openly educated or taught or exposed to these people? No. Why not? First, these people were not Chinese or Europeans. It is clear that the word Taiwan in Bantu is Taiwana, which means we have found it. Taipei, which is the capital of Taiwan, means what have we done wrong now? These are indigenous names that we are using here. In the 16th century, Taiwan started to be known in the Western world via the Portuguese word by the appellation Formosa, which meant beautiful island, Taiwana. Taiwan, original population of indigenous tribes, spoke various Austronesian languages, not Mandarin. Their language was closely related to Malay, Tagalog, and Indonesian, and who are the ancestors of the great Polynesian navigators of the Pacific. Today, the remaining tribes make up only 2% of the population in Taiwan, while the other 95% are the Han Chinese. Therefore, when Tsai was apologizing, her apology was to her own people, the colonists and Chinese tribes who committed genocide on the original owners of Taiwan. That's a fact. Taiwan, excluding Pengu, was first populated by Negrito, these people, and then Austronesian people. It was then colonized by the Dutch during the 17th century, followed by an influx of Han Chinese, including Hakka immigrants from Chinese areas north of Fujian and Guangdong, mainland China, across the Taiwan Strait. Here, somewhere there, we have shown you that. The Spanish also built a settlement in the north for a brief period, but were driven out by the Dutch in 1642. The Chinese named the islands Taiwan, which we have called Taiwana. This is very important historical proof of massive genocide by the Han Chinese in Taiwan. The Aborigines of Taiwan PDF are free download, docplayer.net. That's the address where you can go to get this PDF and read it. It's a very, very critical and important document. Taiwan, melanin dominant humans, they were the first occupants of the land and have been gradually expelled from the coastal plains and driven back into the gorges and deep forests of the central mountains. That's Davison, he's a scholar here, mentions the Pingu, but as a dying race. The Pepo1, the Puyuma and Amis groups are called Juguban, or domesticated savages, by the Japanese. See the terms that they use for us. The Pepo live in the western plain, the Puyuma and the Amis in the eastern plain. They are disappearing and they are made to disappear. The savages, that's the term they give them. In these three groups, they have been stripped of most of their lands. Coming from this document, have been stripped of most of their lands by the Chinese. Influenced by the strength and intelligence of the new arrivals, they have abandoned most of their customs and in certain cases even their language, and adopted those of the Chinese. It is the abandoning of their ancient customs that has given them the name of domesticated savages. When you become a Christian, when you become a Muslim, when you become a Jew, they call you these terms. The Chinese have become completely integrated, whereas year after year the number of savages has decreased at the same time as their influence, and today the Pepo population is only a tenth of what it was a century ago. So within 100 years, they are gone. And in a poverty-stricken condition, these West Coast populations had already nearly disappeared from the map before the arrival of the Japanese. That's the issue that we are having here. The Chinese have been in this game for millennia. Deliberate destruction and colonization of lands. They don't do it the way the British, French did. They do it very slowly, very methodical, and they absorb races and neutralize them very slowly in a structure of race mixing. Father Demila, 1781, informs us of the brutal treatment inflicted on the Aborigines by the Chinese. So this again proves that the Chinese are not the indigenous people. They found the Negritos, the Bantus, the melanin dominant people in Taiwan, who already knew by the 6th century that the subsoil of Taiwan contained gold and silver. In the 17th century, the Spanish missionary Caldenio Arranz mentions the existence of gold-bearing sands in the north and on the east coast. The brutality of the Chinese is confirmed in 1824 by Caprot, who describes the tribute collectors as veritable leeches, who treat the poor Formosans with such rigor and cruelty that it has given rise to riots and revolts among them. See, this is the problem that we have, that we forget. We do not learn from history. This is one book that you have to read, The Aborigines of Taiwan. You can download it. It's a free copy. It is also available as a printed copy, and you can see the international serial book number to use. These are the tribes and the discussions that we are going to do now. Are the Chinese then the indigenous people of Taiwan? By not any measure. They are colonists. They are invaders. These are the indigenous people that they found in Taiwan. Our brothers, our sisters, our ancestors, Bantus, melanin dominant humans. The indigenous inhabitants of Taiwan, known as Formosa in the Western world, after the arrival of the Portuguese and the Dutch and the Spanish, lived in Taiwan for more than 8,000 years before the first arrival of the Han Chinese. I'm going to repeat this. The indigenous inhabitants of Taiwan, known in the West as Iha Formosa more than 8,000 years before the first arrival of the Chinese in the 17th century. This is proof that second proof that the Chinese are not indigenous. These Han Chinese can never be indigenous Taiwan. And these are the indigenous people of Taiwan. The Taiwanese Aborigines are Austronesian people, which both are ethnically and linguistically related people of the Marshall Islands, Philippines, and other Polynesian groups. You can read more of this from here. One big happy Austronesian family. But remember, the Negrito was there first. There we are. You can see them there. And these are descendants of invaders. So Tsai's apology is an empty apology to us. It's an apology to wrong people. Him. This is Kapen Ganen, an 80-year-old leader pretending to be a Yami tribe member who attended the ceremony and gave a speech. It's Chinese. And the original Yami 1900, there it is. Totally and completely different. Even if you say this was a black and white, you can see the flat nose, you can see the bull eyes, the Dolly Sephardic chin here. It's quite different from him. With President Tsai when she made that apology and met this leader and said that 400 years ago, they did something that she regrets, was just apologizing to her own people. In a 15-minute speech, Mr. Tsai said sorry 10 times for the actions of past governments which forced Aboriginal groups to give up their land rights and practices as well as eroded Aboriginal culture. These are not Aboriginal. So why do you apologize to people that are mulatto, that are not Aboriginal? Why not go and look for the original and indigenous? So that's an empty apology. There again, we give more proof. This is the image of the Yami tribe 1900. And this is the fake Yami 2016. The mulatto taking over from the indigenous, taking even the culture. It's all fake. Again, the ethnic Han from the Chinese mainland have colonized the island, this Taiwanese island, since the 17th century, progressively displacing the indigenous population from the more desirable coast towards the more inaccessible highlands in the here. The remotest helped preserve the culture as well as a fierce reputation of head hunting. So because they were head hunters, the Chinese couldn't really go there. The Japanese took Formosa as a trophy of war from the Chinese in 1895 and held it as a colony until 1945. It's very sad. That's why we say Taiwan is very interesting and very important. This is the Penghu Island. This is South China Sea. And this is the almost all of Taiwan from here to there, 395, 145 at the widest point. This is the Philippine Sea and the Japanese here, all the islands. And these are the Hans that are ruling, including the Chinese president herself. She's not indigenous. So she has no need to apologize. All she can do is to pack and go back to China, Mongolia. These are the tribes that are indigenous. And you can see where they are concentrated. And these are the media lies that they tell you. They say that Taiwanese, indigenous Taiwanese. And they say this is an indigenous Maori. It's all a pack of lies. And they say this is Taiwanese aborigine. She's not. Indigenous were driven off the media planes and pushed away into the back burners. They are Bantu, the melanin dominant people in Taiwan before the Chinese looked like this. This is a photo of the Atayal people during the Japanese rule of Taiwan taken by Tori Ruizo. Look at these people. They are not Hans. They are not Asians in the sense of the majority. They are indigenous melanin dominant Bantus. Again, A Plains Aboriginal Child and Woman by Paul Ibis, 1877. Purely Bantu, purely melanin dominant human or African. Here they are. The Pepo people. Pepanabe people. The Pepo Frau. Indigenous people in Taiwan before the Japanese, before the Dutch, before the Chinese, and before the Spanish. They were Bantus. There they are. Taiwanese Aboriginal Woman and an Infant by John Thompson, 1871. Bantu. This is a Chief Rukai visiting Department of Anthropology in Tokyo Imperial University during the Japanese rule. Muntu is a Bantu, not what you There again, you can see here, this is 1900 Formosa old photo, native people visiting at the court of West Often in Taiwan. A scene on valua.com. You go to that website, you can see them. These are Bantus. Look at them. We'll take our time here. These are Bantus. Look at that. These are Bantus here. These are Bantus. Melanin dominant people. These are Africans. Muntu. And as well as they our brothers, our sellout brothers here. Only one here is a foreigner. Looks like a foreigner, that one. The rest are Bantus. Look at them. Our brothers and sisters. These are not indigenous Taiwanese. These are mulatto Chinese invaders, descendants of invaders. Exactly, that is the correct term we use for them. They can pretend, but they are not. Again, these are Taiwanese aboriginals, Bantus, melanin dominant people. Here, look at that. These are aboriginal women of Formosa with tattoos here. And there again is an Amis tribe. She does not look Chinese at all. Not by any imagination. Here is a Piwani chief, Tinaishu or Tinashe, Muntu, straight to the core. Muntu, straight to the core, not Chinese. Let us meet in part 2, where we will elaborate on the ongoing population replacement of the indigenous people and the possible final nail when the Chinese who want to conquer Taiwan militarily and in its drive to rule the whole planet Earth, including the current superpower United States and Europe. The Chinese wants to rule the whole Earth. We must know why they want to do that. From the 15th century, Taiwanese aborigines begin to be described by other people. From 1624, their lands were colonized from time to time by the Dutch, the Spaniards, the Ming Dynasty, the Chinese, the Qing, the Chinese, and the Japanese, and the Republic of China today. It's what will before Africa. They lost wars. They became tired and eventually colonized. Now they are on their way out. Africa and all other melanin-dominant lands and islands are flitting dangerously with the Chinese. You can see here. Very excited, very happy that the Chinese is giving them a vaccination. The same Chinese that engage in race mixing, the same Chinese that remove through tactics indigenous, original natives are being accepted in Africa. Africa has loose immigration laws and is accepting Chinese loans. What do you think will eventually happen to Africa next? The answer is very, very clear. China will eat up all Africans, all Bantus. Our motivation and our desire is restoration of our historical connection, physically or otherwise, with every melanin-dominant person or people found anywhere on earth. We use the general term Muntu or Bantu. We tend to call every melanin-dominant human Muntu and melanin-dominant people Bantu. Their stories, civilizations, pains, happiness, as well as history is our cultural heritage too. We fight that their way of life and our way of life be our daily consciousness and never be lost again, but forever remembered. This is Marifado, our heritage, our culture, our identity, and Ubuntu Ma'at spirit. To learn more and for more information, send us your email on join@marifado.com. This preacher by Elem Tumizulu saying we are rebuilding our greatness. Join us today and let us walk this journey together. Subscribe to our channel, share, and leave a comment. Have a great day. Siyabonga, tatenta, henkos, edupe, asante sana.